If it seems like the US is constantly about to hit the debt limit, also known as the debt ceiling, it's because it is.
It's kind of like the horror film that Hollywood keeps making sequels of, even though no one liked the first one.
Every few years, or sometimes months, Congress needs to vote to raise it. And they will need to do it again sometime in 2023, when Congress will look like this: a Republican-held House and a Democratic-held Senate with a Democrat in the White House. And Republicans plan on using the debt ceiling as leverage to negotiate spending cuts.
The debt ceiling needs to be lifted, but wouldn't it be a normal thing if we're $31 trillion in debt, not to just give a blank check?
So while Congress still looks like this, Democrats are looking to act on the debt ceiling, so it's not something Republicans can use next year. Here are 3 things they might do in that lame duck session. But first, a brief history lesson from what happened another time Congress looked like this. The debt limit was raised many times through recent history without much debate, until 2011, when Republicans decided to use it as a bargaining chip to negotiate for more spending cuts.
The American people will not accept an increase in the debt limit without significant spending cuts and reforms.
The 3 sides debated as the U.S. got closer and closer to defaulting, until
congressional leaders reached a deal with the president
just one day before Uncle Sam hit his credit limit.
The U.S. didn't default, but the country's perfect AAA rating was downgraded by S&P in part because of the fight.
We're no longer the gold standard as it relates to the world's economy.
Longer term, we may see a rise in borrowing costs.
If history repeats itself, that is a scary scenario for this government.
The U.S. can't default on its debt. That would have huge implications for the economy worldwide. Even just getting close to the debt limit can cause big problems for the economy.
So to avoid a fight next year, Democrats this year have 3 options. The first is to just get rid of the debt limit altogether. The U.S. is one of 2 countries that even have one in the first place. And there's already legislation introduced to make it like all these other countries. So the Treasury could just take on as much debt as it needs to pay for spending that Congress already voted for. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was asked last year if she'd support the repeal.
Yes, I would. I believe it's very destructive to put the president and myself, the Treasury Secretary, in a situation where we might be unable to pay the bills that result from those past decisions.
But Biden says he wouldn't sign it.
You mean just say we don't have a debt limit?
No debt.
No.
So that's the least likely possibility. The second is to just raise the debt limit so high, it's not really a problem. That's what the other country with a debt limit, Denmark, does. Its debt would have to quadruple to reach its current limit. The likely plan wouldn't be to raise the US's that high, but just enough to remove it as something that would need to be debated in 2023.
It's not due till next year, but the Democrats could pass something, potentially with Republican votes also in the Senate, that would raise it so we didn't have to worry about it, say, till 2024, 2025.
But the most likely plan is to restructure the way the debt ceiling is raised in the first place and make it not Congress's problem. The idea originates from that 2011 battle.
It was an idea that was brought forward by now Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who at the time was looking for ways to help his members avoid having to vote for the debt ceiling, but give them a way to vote against it.
Currently, a majority in the House and the Senate have to vote for raising the debt ceiling, and then it's signed or vetoed by the president, like most bills. But members of Congress, especially Republicans, don't like having to vote for raising the debt ceiling. So what several bipartisan plans would do is, essentially, reverse this. It would give the executive branch, so the president or even the Treasury Secretary, the authority to raise the debt limit. And Congress could pass a joint resolution of disapproval.
Basically, Congress, instead of voting to affirmatively raise the debt ceiling, members of Congress could vote basically against raising the debt ceiling.
But to actually override the executive branch, they would need a 2/3 majority vote. However, not everyone wants to take the debate away from Congress, simply because it's crises that make Congress actually get things done.
We find ourselves at the edge of cliffs a lot in Congress, and that seems to be one of the only motivators to get people to make concessions and reach agreements. But on the debt ceiling, that is a very high-risk strategy.
Many Republicans want that high-risk strategy to get spending cuts and other measures they worry they won't get under a Democratic president.
Republicans have tried to reach across the aisle and have been shut out of many of those conversations. If we could do that, then we wouldn't need to use the threat of the debt ceiling as a negotiating tool.
There are definitely divisions within the Republican Party about how they see that. Some of them really want to go to the brink and force these changes that they really believe are important, and others don't think we should be using the debt ceiling that way and would rather just take care of it. Maybe even would rather Democrats take care of it in the lame duck before they have to worry about it next year in their majority.
So Democrats have about 2 months to decide on one of these paths and potentially gain Republican support for it. Otherwise, come 2023, we'll likely see an epic debt limit debate again.